Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Addict new release roundup. If you're new here, first of all, welcome. What we do here is we go back and forth and we talk about the latest home video releases, what we think of them, if they're good, if they're bad, if they're Candyman 3 level bad. That's in our tier. That's kind of the worst of the worst. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I don't know if you can get much worse than that. But before we really tuck into everything, I wanted to give a special shout out to our editor, Andre. They are awesome. And every time you hear a cool sound effect or image or any of that good stuff, Andre is responsible for that. They are our resident French expert. So anytime that we do a French thing, they will always be there to correct us or not. So,
Yes, there might be a little bit of that later this episode. That's a tease. Yeah.
so but seriously, Rockstar, and it really helps us out with this show. So yeah, thank you. And with that out of the way, we are going to get into some really awesome movies, and we have some great stuff. But I'm going to kick off this party with arguably one of the most classic films of the 40s, and that's the Maltese Falcon. This truly is the stuff that dreams are made of. Corny, but that's the famous line from this. It's even quoted on the back there. And we have some really good features. These are all ported over. I do not believe anything is brand new for this, but it looks fantastic. So we'll get into that. But yeah, it's such an iconic movie, and this is rightly considered the granddaddy of all film noirs. Interestingly enough, this is based on a book, but this is technically a remake of a 30s film. In fact, right after the book was published, I think maybe a year, maybe less, they did a 30s version of this. So when people dog on remakes, there's still some pretty good ones. And this, of course, is one of them. This movie kind of looms pretty large in pop culture. Every kind of Hollywood noir trope you can derive from this film. For example, every time there is a femme fatale waltzing into a detective's office, that's from this movie. And yeah, it's great. It's expertly plotted and paced. Houston always keeps you engaged, and especially when you're navigating this very twisty, turny kind of plot. Sam Spade is a really fascinating character. And it's maybe one of Bogart's most famous character outside of Rick Blaine. So everything just hits with this movie. Acting, production design, costumes, just everything is stellar. I have a cool little bit of trivia. The prop Falcon sold for over $4 million in 2013. And this movie was also a part of the first batch of films to be preserved by the Library of Congress. And I think that's pretty cool. So as for the film, like how it looks, Warner Brothers really comes to play with all of their releases, but their 4K releases especially. So this is a black and white film. The contrast is really nice between the black and whites, the shadows, the very noirish look really pops in this. No scratches or artifacts or debris. The audio is really nice, especially when you get into like 40s era stuff. Like the sound equipment's so much better than the previous decade. So they're working with some really nice audio material here. And the features are great. It does a really nice deep dive into the film. The commentary is well worth checking out. If you've only had this on DVD or Blu-ray, holy crap, buy it, upgrade it. You know, let Warner Brothers know that you want to see more of these classic films. Like, I believe last year they did Casablanca in 4K, another classic Humphrey Bogart film. So, just like with Rebel Without a Cause, I'm excited with the 100 Warner Brothers line, stellar work, and yeah, like this is. For classic film fans, I feel like this is a must-buy.
Yeah, shamefully, I have neither owned this or even seen it before, and I know that's pretty crazy, but I think this is a perfect time to jump into it with the 4K to see like the ultimate representation outside of maybe a movie theater. But I'm very excited to check this out because it has been one shameful blind spot for me for many years. So glad to see this getting a 4K release. Yeah, but moving on to my first title, this is a really good release, but I'm not sure if I'm completely on board for the movie, but I'll dig into that a little bit. And this is, I believe it's from 1999. It's from 88 Films, and this is Gorgeous with Jackie Chan, which 88 Films has done some really great releases. They just did a Jackie Chan movie I covered a few months ago called Dragons Forever. There's also been other labels doing a lot of Jackie Chan stuff and just a lot of martial arts stuff in general. So there's a lot of great releases. But for this movie in particular, well, let me first just show off all this packaging and artwork because they do such a great job. So this is the reversible artwork here, a little colorful and everything. And let me carefully put this back. And I already showed off the disc artwork, which features our main heroine, and then they have a booklet here. And it's a pretty substantial booklet. There's essays and still photos and all that good stuff in here. So a lot of great content in here. And then there's also a foldable poster. So has pretty similar artwork as the front. Yeah, pretty much identical. So have this here. Want to get the full glory of it, and then the reversible art here. So nice artwork. And so the Dragons Forever release that I was just referencing, that was a 4K release. This is just Blu-ray only. There is not a 4K release. But so this film, it is fine, but it's very very atypical of what probably most Americans would probably think of like as a Jackie Chan movie. This one's very silly and light, which I've seen a lot of like kind of like Hong Kong and other like provinces of China, like their releases, they can kind of be a little bit silly and zany and everything. And this kind of leans more towards the rom-com side of the spectrum, with a little bit of like martial arts and stuff like tucked in here and there. But what this basically is our lead character here, played by a woman who I will not try to say her name because I'll probably butcher it, but she is one of the leads of the original Transporter. Maybe I will try it. Shu Kui? I'll just say that. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But she, at the beginning of the film, she's kind of like a hopeless romantic. She's like talking about like these romantic fairy tales and like this like folklore about like these dolphins that are like could turn into humans, and they're like lovers and everything. And she has all these kind of fantastical thoughts about romance. And then like one day she finds a message in a bottle, which has traveled to Taiwan from Shanghai, I believe. And so she like she travels from Taiwan to Shanghai to find out the person who sent this message. And when she gets there, she meets a character played by, I believe it's Tony Leung, who he's a very effeminate homosexual, and that's one of the more problematic elements of this movie. But she kind of becomes fast friends with him and quickly learns that that will not be her one true love like she thought it might be. But then in the same time, she ends up meeting the character played by Jackie Chan, who is kind of like a star around him and everything. So he's kind of playing almost like a version of himself. But she eventually does kind of fall for him, and they have like a romance. But there's also kind of nondescript villainy going on in the back, like some like shady people from his past like show up and try to take him down. And it's very convoluted with like a mixture of like this weird romance and like slapsticky comedy with this kind of martial arts aspect, not helped by the fact that there's like a 20+ year age difference between the Jackie Chan and this young woman, which does not make me feel great when I'm watching this. But so I never really felt like they had chemistry. The humor is just very, like I said, very slapsticky and silly, and some of it is problematic with the portrayal of gay characters, and it's just all kind of very broad, and I wasn't really jiving with it a lot. There are two cuts of this movie. One is the original Hong Kong cut, and one's the international cut. For my primary viewing, I did the original longer Hong Kong cut, which is right at 2 hours, and that's like it's a very long 2 hours. Like it kind of really, it fills its length. I'm not sure how about I think it's like an hour and a half-ish international cut might play better, but I haven't had a chance to like view it in full to see how that pacing works. I just kind of like did some spot checks. But for the original Hong Kong version, it's just a very long, tonally inconsistent movie, which there were things that I liked about it. The ending fight that Jackie Chan gets into is fairly entertaining, but I don't know. There were more issues than I expected from this movie. I did not know anything about it. I did not know it was more so a rom-com than anything, but this is more so for Jackie Chan enthusiasts rather than casual fans. You need to kind of know what you're getting into. This isn't just going to be your like kind of like drunken master type martial arts thing. It's more of a rom-com with some martial arts influences. But this is a good release for those who are a fan of this movie or just Jackie Chan in general. Like I said, there are both cuts of the movie that come from a 2K remaster. There are 2 commentary tracks on the Hong Kong cut and 1 commentary track on the international cut. There are 2 main interviews with like the director and I believe like one of the assistant directors, or maybe it's the composer. And then there's like a vintage making of featurette and like some trailers and music videos. So overall, it's a good release, but as a movie, had some problems with it. I wish they hadn't went so broad and slapsticky, but if you're into that kind of like Hong Kong type movie, then you could have fun with it. Just know what you're getting into. But 88 Films, they provided a good release. It's just, this isn't the strongest Jackie Chan film I've seen this year, and I've seen quite a few with some of the releases they put out, but it's a good release.
Yeah, like you're becoming our resident Jackie Chan expert.
Yes,
I
and they're
feel
about to
like
put out a volume 2 from Shout Factory as well, like even
yes.
more. So like, there's so much Jackie Chan.
Yeah, that's great. So that one might be like a soft pass for now, but sounds like it's a good presentation though.
Yeah,
So
sample it and see if it's for you first. That's what I would recommend.
so my next title, I'm sticking in the 4K realm, and classic is debatable with this one.
Okay.
Your mileage may vary, but she's a maniac.
Mm.
Uh, and yeah, so I have some really interesting thoughts about this, but first I'm just going to show the packaging off. And the back and the inside. So as as with the Maltese Falcon, this also has a digital copy. This is not in there now, but if you order it, yours will have that. But yeah, so I don't know if I'd say this was a classic, but it was interesting. I have to say that it kind of blows my mind that a movie not based on a prior IP can gross over $200 million. Like this was made on a budget of $7 million, and like, I mean, and that's just box office. That doesn't include home video sales. It doesn't include merchandise and right up until the present, more sales. So that's kind of wild to me. And then that's like an 80s money. So that's adjusted for inflation. I don't know.
It was the third highest grossing movie of the year it came out. How insane is that?
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
And this infamously was kind of mixed with critics. Robert Ebert actually had it on his worst of list that year. Because like after I watched this, I was really curious, so I did a little like homework, and I thought that was interesting. I don't think it was bad. The narrative does feel a little underwhelming at times, and characters maybe could have been fleshed out, but I think like as far as like a nuts and bolts underdog story, it was fun. It satisfied that itch. I think it's interesting because I was talking to somebody about it last night, and they were like, yeah, but you have to understand that like she is a welder and a dancer, and she was kind of breaking out of that gender norm for the 80s. And I was like, you know what? That's really interesting, because I really didn't kind of put it in that sort of specific context. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So very ahead of its time. And for an 80s movie, there's not a lot of yikes. So that's good. I mean, there definitely is a character that is very gross. You've seen this, right?
Yeah, several times.
Okay. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. And
well, there's a couple you could be talking about, honestly, but
yeah. Yeah, that's true. But like they're really skeezy. I'm blanking on his character. He like owns the dance club or something.
Yeah. The more villainous one, yeah. I got you.
I mean, he does kind of get some comeuppance, and I'm at least glad that he's not framed as like misunderstood, or that's just how he jokes. There's always that I find kind of gross. But yeah. It's again, Paramount, kind of like Warner Brothers, really does a nice job with their catalog releases. I will say, even though I didn't hate this movie, it just didn't really connect with me like probably other people. But I will say, visually, it's a really interesting movie, just in how it's shot, but also the color palette. So I thought Paramount did a really nice job of staying faithful to like the cinematographer's vision of how certain things look, how it's lit. It's not like processed to death, which is nice. It still has that kind of grainy film texture look. I know there's been some movies I won't mention, but that kind of just just smooth the hell out of stuff, and I hate that. It looks overworked and overprocessed, but not here. This looks really nice. It's not a particularly colorful movie, but I mean, there is like some nice flourishes that I think are well represented here, and it sounds great as well. And you want something that sounds great because obviously this is a dance movie, has some iconic songs. Maniac, which I believe was actually written for. I mean, it was changed a lot, but it was written for Bill Lustig's Maniac. So very different. But I've always thought about like a Flashdance Maniac crossover event. So I'm putting that out in the universe. I want that. But yeah, this is fun. I believe was it earlier this year or last year they put this out and they did the new filmmaker focus.
They did the Paramount Presents Blu-ray in actually 2020. I actually reviewed that on the site. That was like one of my early days of home entertainment reviewing. So I got to review it then, and now I reviewed it this one now. So it's been about 3 years since they put that out. But
Nice.
that Blu-ray is included as the Blu-ray in this, and then the 4K disc as well.
Yeah. And it's nice because I mean, again, you do get everything pulled over from the previous releases. Plus, again, it looks spectacular in 4K. So I think if you have that Blu-ray and you have 4K capability, pull the trigger. It's good. So yeah, it's interesting because this wouldn't necessarily be a film that I would necessarily pick for myself. And that's not like some bullshit macho stuff. I can appreciate dance and musicals and stuff, but it's just not something that ever really gravitates towards my viewing, I guess. But I'm glad I watched it. I would even go so far as say I'd probably watch it again. But
yeah, this is one I've watched this is probably my third or fourth viewing. I've watched this mostly like every time with my wife. She introduced me to this movie, and it's somewhat charms. That if people, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds because people can read my review on the website if they want to. I kind of view this more so as like a series of music videos linked together by flimsy plot.
yeah.
But kind of what I was alluding to earlier is like one of my main grievances with this movie is just that it's another, I just talked about it with Gorgeous, but it's the age difference and power dynamics between her and her dude who is her boss, who like goes into her employee files to like figure out who she is and like track her down at work and like put her on the spot to like go out with him. And I'm like, that's very uneven power dynamics, sir. That is not good.
I'm glad you pointed it out because that is pretty yikes. I mean, especially there was that scene at the beginning where she's like, she's like, there's clear divisions here. I don't date my boss. And he's like, well, you're fired.
Yeah.
8 p.m. Sound good? And
it's just like, oh, it's cute.
And it's like, oh, yikes. But, I mean, it's not like we're saying cancel the movie. It's just a reminder that we've come a long way since then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, I don't know, it is what it is. But I have a lot of fun with the movie. I've been like singing the songs ever since I rewatched this last week. And it's a fun time. If you're a fan of the movie, this is a great new release. I agree like wholeheartedly with that. I'm glad Paramount did it justice. Yeah. But moving on to something completely different. This is the final season of a long-running show from Lionsgate. It is the final season of AMC's The Walking Dead. And I will say, I'm not going to go too deeply into plot because people, like, if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it. And if you're 11 seasons in, I don't think this is suddenly going to like trigger like, oh, now I'm going to jump in with this season. So if you want to get caught up, I don't want to like ruin the journey. But I just will say that this picks up pretty soon after the events of the previous 10th season finale. And that season was one that it was kind of more so on an upswing, but I was kind of ready for it to kind of start landing the plane because it's been on a long time. And this season, this is its longest season yet. There are 24 episodes in this one. They used to range from like 13, 16-ish, and then like the 10th season was like 22, and now it's 24. So they're really trying to beef up these last couple seasons. And because of that, there are some kind of filler episodes in this one, but what I really like, it starts off with a real bang. The first couple episodes are very exciting and kind of gives you the best of what Walking Dead can offer, I think. There's a lot of great kind of character turns, and like there's introducing of new locations and communities and stuff as the survivors within this kind of zombie apocalypse are trying to rebuild their lives. And so the last few seasons have been really just about rebuilding and trying to like see if there is a life that can like be brought back from where they've come from. So this season is a lot of kind of just like trying to tie up a lot of those threads. There are your tragic losses. There are some really interesting storylines. There are some storylines that don't really go anywhere. There's a mixture of things. I would not say this really captures the highs of the earliest seasons, but it's not like an embarrassment either. As like there's been some seasons that have been more of a slog to get through. This is kind of more so in the middle. And I would say like where this ends up for the finale ultimately, it's not as big or exciting as I would want to, but they didn't really fumble it either. It's kind of more so just like it's ended and it's not an embarrassment. So it's like, okay, it's fine. And it's also kind of, it's not the best because it's also, this is a franchise they've tried to like spin off and like there are even more spin-offs coming. So it's kind of hard to get emotionally invested 100% knowing that like certain characters are going to continue on this show or something. So it's like, this isn't the end. There's just the end for some people, but there's like always a chance that people could show up different things. So it's hard to make it feel like a good finale because AMC just wants to continue this, one of their most successful franchises, which I understand, but narratively, it kind of leaves a little bit to be desired, but still an overall pretty good last season. So yes, this is a 6-disc set, which I showed off. If anyone who's watched the previous seasons, they'll know it's pretty consistently audiovisual wise. It's a good picture. It always kind of has like a more gritty, grainy look, but it looks really good. 7.1 sound. Sounds really great, really immersive. You love to hear those zombie moans coming from all around you. Unfortunately, for this being the final season, they don't really go all out on the special features, which is disappointing. There's like 2 deleted scenes, and that's it. And I'm just like, where's like the like retrospective? Where's just kind of like we had a great time like making this show for 11 seasons. Where is that kind of like something for fans? But they at least did the honor of like continuing all the seasons on on Blu-ray in high definition. So you get that, you get the end of the journey. It's just not as comprehensive as a packaging as I really would have wanted, but it's here for fans. The journey, this mothership journey has ended, and I think if you collected the previous 10 seasons, I don't think you're going to stop and be like, forget the 11th final season. Forget it. No, you're going to finish it up, and it's a good release. So, Walking Dead, the final season, it's a pretty solid release.
Nice. I have a really sordid confession. I've never seen any of The Walking Dead.
You actually made this confession when I covered Fear the Walking Dead.
Oh, right. Because
yeah, I understand it's a lot to get invested in, but it does seem very much your show, like your type of show.
Yeah, like Fear the Walking Dead's still going on though, right?
Yeah. For at least like another season, I think. It's also, but then there's like other spinoffs, so who knows? It's all over the place.
Yeah, I try and like, I don't know. I'll get there eventually. Like I said, I think I probably mentioned this last time. I used to keep up with the comics a lot, like they were great. But anyways, I'm sticking on the 4K train here.
Okay.
We got another title from Warner Brothers in their 100 celebration, and this is Cool Hand Luke. Back. So, here's the back and the inside. So what we have here is failure to communicate. I was gonna try to do like the southerny draw, but I don't know.
If I can do my Mickey voice, you can do your Southern drawl. Especially for me as a Southerner, I need to be able to judge you.
What we have here is failure to communicate.
Fantastic. No notes. No notes.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's only fair. But yeah, I so this is a really fun movie. Maybe fun's not a right word, but Paul Newman just sells the hell out of this movie. And I'm not going to have a huge review because this is a classic. I feel like most people have seen it, but I feel like we take for granted the that a lot of the prison film, like especially when we're talking about like the 60s onwards, that how much this movie kind of influenced other prison movies, especially like men in prison movies, even though that's not a super popular genre. But this definitely kind of like set the template. As I mentioned before, Paul Newman is kind of the glue that holds this movie together. It has a stellar cast. You can never go wrong with George Kennedy, in my opinion. Like, always a win. And I think broader, it's really interesting in the time period that it was made. Its themes of anti-establishment rang so well in a Vietnam era, Nixon kind of American landscape. And I know a lot of our viewers will probably know, I find it interesting. I do this with my reviews as well to give, if there's some interesting context behind when the film was made, I think it helps you view it a little bit differently. And, when you keep that in mind, I think that it's a really interesting watch. It's funny because I never really noticed this till rewatching it, but there's like a lot of Christ imagery in this, which I also think is quite interesting. But yeah, this is it's a great movie. I think maybe the pacing's a little wonky. I think maybe the direction could have used a little bit of work, but it truly is Paul Newman's film. Like, he really just I know I've said this 5 times in this review, but he really does make this movie. So as far as it looks, it's another really nice job as far as the HDR, the coloring. It never looks oversaturated. The skin tones look really nice. Again, I am so thankful that they didn't smooth the hell out of this release. It looks nice. It has that nice grain texture to it. There's a lot of outdoor locales that look really stunning. I think the cinematography in this is really top notch. So, kind of like the Maltese Falcon, you can really see all the love and care that kind of went into making this film and making it look really interesting and immersive. So yeah, it looks great, sounds great. We don't get a lot of special features, but we do get a commentary track and we get some legacy featurettes, which is nice. And again, it's not I believe there's nothing new on this release except for the 4K, but I mean the 4K alone, you'll want to get this. And I know we've talked about this before, but if you want these cool slipcovers, usually that's a first printing kind of thing, so you'll want to get yours soon. And it's a nice release.
Yeah, that's one I have seen this one before. I have seen this classic, but I have never owned it, so I'm very excited to pick this one up. But I guess my question to you is so the guy who did the salad dressing also acts? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Okay. That's so. You learn something new every day. That's wild. I didn't make the connection, so that's cool.
No, it's so funny because it feels like it wasn't too long ago that I had an other 2 cup batch of Paul Newman films from Kino.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So I'm it truly is the salad days for Paul Newman fans.
hmm hmm watch that subscriber count just plummet. Just in real. They're tired of it. That looks great. Moving on to my next release. This is from Kino Lorber and the Milestone Cinematheque. This is The Man Without a World, and this one is pretty fascinating because I did not know what I was getting into whenever I started it. But this film, it presents itself as a 1920s silent film. What it actually is a movie from 1991 that was made it was made by this woman who claimed to have found this rare film made by this non-existent director from the 20s and stuff, but it was just something that she had made. So it's kind of like this really interesting kind of indie project where she just decided she wanted to make this silent film. It's a highly Jewish specific tale, but she just reported that it was this long lost film by this non-existent director, which I think is hilarious. Even though if you do watch it, you can kind of, anyone who's seen their fair share of silent era films knows that nothing is going to be this pristine as it is. There's still variances in quality, but there's more kind of wear and tear on your average 20s era silent film than it is here, which looks really nice with this new 4K restoration. But so yeah, overall, it's a kind of a tale of Jewish plight. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's just there's romance and drama and just Jewish struggle, just Jewish strife, and it's a really I love kind of Jewish centered films. You talked about Hester Street last year. I reference it every time I talk about Joe Micklin Silver. This is not Joe Micklin Silver, but I love Hester Street, and I love films from the Jewish perspective. So this one is a really interesting kind of oddity where it's it's a newer film, but it's presented as an older film, and it's a really good approximation of a silent film. You would have besides it being just better looking than normal, you would never have guessed it was a modern film because it there obviously no dialogue, but it has the original score. It's structured, all that stuff. It's really well presented. So this new 4K restoration looks really nice. Like I said, it's a almost flawless looking presentation, which can kind of break that illusion, but I do like that it looks so nice. And this comes with a two additional kind of short films from the director, an audio commentary with the lady who directed this, and then also an interview with one of the actors as well. So there's a really nice array of special features and just kind of things that kind of help put this into perspective. There's a kind of a newly recorded score for this, and then there's also an original score that you can access through the special features. So overall, this is an interesting one. It's kind of a little oddball, but I liked it. I'm glad I found it out. It's a good release from Kino and Milestone.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, I too really find Jewish cinema very fascinating, and that definitely seems like something I should check out. I don't know how to this. This release couldn't be more different, so I don't know how to segue. But it's Dawson's Creek.
My heart.
So
I don't want to wait to hear you talk about this.
Boo. So here's the cover, and this is a beefy release. So this is how it's broken up. I'll show you the inside of the first, so this is how the discs are presented, which even though these are sometimes kind of fragile, I think I prefer this than some of the other kind of ways they house discs. But What's really nice is now I've never owned this, like the individual seasons, so I don't recall if these features are new to this set or just like imports from the other seasons. But either way, it's cool that we got some special features, and it's just not like plopped out, and I really appreciate that. Like I think one thing with Mill Creek is, when they're good, they're great, and I think like when they're bad, they're pretty spectacularly bad.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, they do TV well. I will say the I Dream of Jeannie set was a major letdown.
Yeah.
Like it was interesting how I think you did a oh my gosh, why am I blanking on Jeannie's name?
Oh,
Barbara
Barbie,
Eden.
Barbie, yeah.
Yeah. That you did another release from Kino that had a new interview with her.
Oh
Uh
yeah, the
and I
brass
mean,
bottle, yeah,
yeah,
which
and
was basically I Dream a Genie in reverse. It was a male genie.
yeah. So yeah. So I will say yes, props for Mill Creek. I mean, even if that is just, a port over, it's still nice to have it. But
Mhm.
yeah, so now I've had this set for maybe a week, so I haven't finished the entire series, so I am no Dawson Creek expert, but I am kind of loving what I've been watching. It's a, very nostalgic teen drama. You got to cue that James Vanderbeek cry face. And I it's funny because I never really even realized Kevin Williamson created this series and was a showrunner for this. But I have to say he does a really great job in terms of how he crafts really interesting characters and situations. And we also get a few like horror themed episodes, one of which was briefly featured in Scream 5, which is fun little trivia. With the new Scream dominating at the box office, this is kind of cool to have something that, in a way is sort of akin to, at least it has a part of the legacy of Scream. But I mean, I kind of wish that Ghostface would have showed up in this at some point.
Oh no.
Um, but he doesn't. But anyways, yeah, it's very soap
Well, you haven't
opera.
finished it. You don't know.
That's true. That could be a really good twist. But yeah, I'm having fun with this. It's a good series. It is very much of its time, but I think that's why part of why I'm having so much fun revisiting it. This was a show that I never really watched when it was first on, but of course it loomed so large in the pop culture that you kind of couldn't get away from it. So yeah, fun. It's a good watch. It's nice that it's all there for fans. Mill Creek usually has stuff pretty reasonably priced as well, so it looks good. Not spectacular, but for a Mill Creek, it's pretty nice looking, especially when you consider it's like a late '90s, early 2000s show. So yeah, no complaints. Again, appreciated all the features, and if you're a fan of this show, that's I feel like that alone is kind of worth picking this setup.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I told you before we started recording that I was a fan of the show. I've seen it. I completed a watch through of the show probably within the last 5 or 6 years, something along those lines. After many, many years of trying to get through it, I finally did. But I bought all the seasons on DVD as they came out. So now I'm like, well, I got to watch them at least once all the way through, but like where was that Blu-ray at the time? But like I'm glad it's here now. But this has like such a nostalgia attached for me that I'm so excited. Like I'm it's very soapy and melodramatic and stuff, but it just like there's so much I really do appreciate about this series that it'll always hold a special place in my heart. And it has a really great cast too, including like recent Academy Award nominee Michelle Williams in
Yeah.
like her early role, and her relationship with Graham in that show, like her grandmother, is really special, and I really like that. So really glad to have this on Blu-ray. So good job for Mill Creek for bringing this out. And I will stop talking about Dawson's Creek now, but I'm just saying I've always really enjoyed like a good soapy drama, and that one's really
Well, no, listen, this is no longer the Video Addict. This is the Dawson Creek podcast where we go episode by episode and we
cool.
talk about everything Dawson's Creek. So,
ooh, all right, let's get it going. We'll put that on pause for a second because I have another release to talk about. This is a spaghetti western. It is from 1968, and this is the Belle Starr story, which is it's directed by Lena Wertmuller and Piero Cristofani. I believe it is that I just read a brief snippet. I didn't investigate completely, but I believe the dual credit is because this started out being directed by Piero, but then he was replaced after a few days by Lena Wertmuller, who you actually covered a documentary about her a few months ago on this here show. And for those who don't know, she was the first woman to ever be nominated for Best Director at the Academy Awards. So that is her distinction. But here she is early on, like kind of earlier on in her career. It's a really interesting story, and I'm glad she ended up ultimately telling this story because this stars Elsa Martinelli as this woman who she kind of presents herself as like a classic Western archetype badass. She's like cool, calm, cool, collected from the very beginning. Like she kind of wears her hair up and like smokes like cigars and all that type of stuff, and just kind of like exudes cool from the very beginning, where you see her like dominating a card game and everything. But then you kind of like slowly begin to like kind of learn her backstory and her trauma that led to her like kind of taking on this kind of persona and like ultimately like wanting to exact revenge on certain people. And while it still has issues, I would say, and kind of like some of the drawbacks of this like period of filmmaking where there's kind of some victimization and like kind of some kind of more icky elements. It could have been much worse in a different director's hands, I feel. It's not very exploitative when it really could have been. And it's really kind of like, at least for this time, sensitively handled material, I would say. And beyond that, it's just like a pretty entertaining spaghetti western, especially since you don't have a lot of spaghetti westerns led by women. So that's pretty cool. It runs a very spry 99 minutes, so it's not like crazy long or anything. It's paced pretty well. There is kind of like an extraneous romantic subplot, which I didn't completely jive with, but it also wasn't prominent enough to really ruin the movie or anything. But whenever the lead character, Belle Starr, was kind of just doing her thing and kind of revealing layers upon herself, I really was engaged in her story, and I think it was a really interesting spaghetti western, and I like what Lena did with this movie, and I think it's worth a watch for anyone, especially if you are interested in spaghetti westerns but kind of get tired of kind of like the same perspective or story over and over. This at least adds a little bit of something different to kind of shake things up a little bit. This presentation from Raro Video actually looks pretty nice. It's you can tell it's been cleaned up pretty well. There's still some like nicks and specks here and there, but overall it's a really solid looking release, which you can especially tell the difference because there's actually a second version of this movie on here that's slightly edited. So the main movie is in Italian. This was made, like I said, in Italy, and there is an English dub, but it's with this. They could not conform it to the Italian cut because it's the English audio is conformed to a different cut, so they included a slightly altered cut in standard definition with the English audio, if you want to view it that way. But the difference between that print and the HD restored print is vast. It looks a lot better than what you could see it could have been if it hadn't been restored. So I appreciate the restoration. I did not watch the English dub and cut in its entirety, but it didn't seem like crazy different, but I can tell that they're like, obviously it's in English and then small differences here and there. Beyond that, there's an audio commentary from, I believe it's Sam Deegan, who she always does a really good some commentary tracks for a lot of like these specialty boutique releases. And yeah, I believe that is the only main commentary or the only main supplement. But that's something that a lot of these rare video releases, they don't have any special features. So I'm glad there's at least a commentary to at least put some stuff into perspective. So if you're a spaghetti western fan, the Belle Starr story is a really good addition, especially if you're looking for something a little different within the genre.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting, especially since, you're right. It really isn't a lot of female-led spaghetti westerns, so that's always really cool. So I'm going to stick with Mill Creek here for my next title, and this is one that's in a series that I've covered a few of these, and I've always really enjoyed these, and that is the Becoming Evil series, the Unsolved edition. Cue the Unsolved Mysteries theme, but so here's the back, and so this is a 2-disc collection here, and yeah, so I was like, why do they have the Golden State Killer on here? I was like, they caught him, but I guess I was like, well, if they're like unsolved, how are you gonna have a picture of like somebody to put on your? But they do, yeah. But they do talk about the Golden State Killer. Actually, this docu-series seems to be pretty recent because they reference him being caught. I'm blanking on his name, but they also talk about the HBO documentary, which talks about that, which is really fantastic and is really interesting. If y'all are true crime fans, that's like a must. But yeah, I really like this series. I like how really well things are broken up, and I particularly found the Jack the Ripper segment really fascinating. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting because that's like something I feel like I've heard so much about, but there was some new little information I thought was interesting, and even stuff that is very well known, like Jack the Ripper, they are able to recontextualize it in something that's like more interesting for like true crime buffs, but not so extra that it alienates like new people to true crime. So the way everything's presented is nice, coherent, concise. I really enjoy this series. Like all in all, it's a little less than 4 hours for the entire 2-disc set. So it is a pretty quick watch if you are used to like binging hours and hours worth of stuff. But overall, it's a really nice presentation. It's shot on, I believe, like maybe low quality digital, so it looks fine. It's DVD. Like I'm not going to get into the specs because it's 720p, so it's not spectacular. But there's no extras. But the documentary is presented well enough that I guess you don't really need that. So yeah. This is a really good series. I believe previously they did like a gangster like iteration of this, which I thought was cool. So it's all kinds of evil that they touch upon. So this is like and I don't know about you, but I'm very fascinated with like unsolved cases. Like I think
Mhm.
that's really intriguing. So this was like firmly up my alley. So um very inexpensive and pretty fun. I mean I I honestly think it could have been longer, but that's good if I think that, I wanted more.
Mhm.
So yeah, definitely worth checking out if you're a true crime buff.
Yeah, absolutely. I know true crime is so popular in our culture right now that I know a lot of people are probably going to be very interested in that. Moving on, I'm also sticking more with television. This is the conclusion of a long-running series I've been talking about. I've talked about this is the fourth season, fourth and final, and this is Maigret. The final season. I just talked about the third one a few weeks back, and this fourth season came shortly afterwards, and I plunged through all 13 episodes and then like a final kind of special play that I'll talk about in just a second. But this season, like I said, this comes with all 13 episodes and a special. So you got this actually comes with 4 discs compared to the 3 of the previous season. I think because the last special like additional play that they include is like 90 minutes. So they just kind of spread out the episodes a little bit more, which I think does benefit the series. So you have all kind of the information here and restoration notes. And as the restoration notes say, as I've talked about with the video quality in the past, the main episodes they kind of maintain the quality of the previous seasons, where it's not great due to like how it was captured, and like the kind of like having to like decomb and deinterlace the product and like digitally scrub it a little bit to make it kind of look presentable. The special, which I keep referring to, it's called Play of the Month, Maigret at Bay, which was in 1969. So a few months after the series ended, this came back for another 92-minute play film. That the material for that actually does still exist, so they were able to kind of do a little bit something like restoration-wise differently with that, which looks a little bit better than the main episodes, which is interesting. So besides that special play, there's no really special features besides the normal like restoration comparisons, which you can tell that they did do a lot of like work to make this look the best that it could. As far as like the content of this season, I would say it's pretty much in line with what I've been talking about the past 3 seasons. It's just a really good Rupert Davies. Rupert Davies just doing a really good job of like bringing Maigret to life, as he was like the author of the books, like pretty much choice is like the perfect adaptation of his famous character. There's a lot of really good cases. I would say even though this is a final season, it's not presented as like anything big or like out of the ordinary for its finale. It pretty much just kind of like it kind of just kind of ends, but it's just kind of like this is a character. He's kind of always just like he's just perpetually around. You just kind of like he's always around to solve crimes, but if you don't get more from him, you're just like he does his job while he's around. He
Yeah.
just it's a comforting show. It's a procedural. There's really good like writing and like mysteries within each season. And not like you asked me after I talked about the third season if it was just kind of like anything particularly like different, if there's any season I kind of recommended like or anything, but I would say no, it's just a pretty rock solid show throughout
Nice.
its 4 seasons. It doesn't really dip in quality. These are all pretty much drawn from like previously existing material, and they do this material pretty like justice. So if you're a fan of the character, if you've seen any of the first 3 seasons, this fourth season closes it out nicely. You have that extra like play, and it's a really nice set. So Kino and Network, they did a really good job with these presentations. I'm glad to have the whole series now. I have not heard anything about like a complete series bundle or anything. Kino doesn't really seem to do that very much. They do kind of seem to just keep things separately, like even like their Outer Limits sets, they keep both seasons of those separately. So I wouldn't hold out for it necessarily to be bundled. If you're interested, and maybe if you see it on sale or anything, pick it up. It's a really good series. But either way, I think it deserves full price. But either way, I think you should pick it up if you're a fan of kind of like the detective mystery, fun kind of cozy mystery genre.
Yeah, and just to also, Kino's running a sale right now, actually. Mm-hmm. So it'll still be going on by the time this episode comes out. So I don't recall if these are a part of that sale, but Kino always puts out everything great. So I'll link to where you can check out their, I think it's like their spring sale.
Yeah, can we stop this so I can just go browse that sale? I just don't have. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just like, I just meant like I can't wait to go see this sale. We just need to end this.
All right, I was like ready to like fully stop this recording.
I'm glad to know you're on board with this. Like, we can stop this show at any moment to go shop Kino.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I just throw down everything. You're literally, if you're holding something, throw it down. Except for a baby, I guess. But yeah, Kino's great. They've really been awesome to us, and you all should check out their sale. I'll link that in the description. My next title is actually not a movie. It's a book.
I won't allow it. I won't allow it.
Because you know what? We are classy up in this bitch. So we are, we love movie books. And this is a fun one from TCM. And then this is also Running Press. I've done some of their other books before. Always really fantastic. And this is, but have you read the book? And it's a really cute, I'll show you the inside here. Like, I can give you, so yeah, it's a nice little, every movie gets about a page or two, so it's very brief. It is a really nice kind of dissection of the film and the book, and there's some really cool trivia. I mean, if you're a huge, huge film buff, I don't know if you're necessarily going to learn anything new, but I still found it really fascinating. It's a really great read. I think it's especially great if you're kind of new to classic cinema, and a lot of film books can seem overwhelming. And then this, I mean, it's nice. It's nice, small. It's kind of one of those, like, it's a perfect time to be released because this is like a perfect beach read. It's like something that doesn't take up a lot of space. You can just tote it around. It's really fun. And they talk about like more like contemporary movies, which I also really like If Beale Street Could Talk, for example. Coraline is in there. So it is like not just older classics, but modern classics as well. And I think that will kind of speak to a broader audience, which is really smart. So yeah, this is a really fun read. I really enjoyed it. It didn't take me long because it's not very, involved, but that was kind of fun. It's just like a nice evening that I spent kind of devouring this book. So I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's nice to, as much as we love movies, it's also kind of fun just to talk about like books that really like celebrate movies, just like.
Ooh, shameless.
Listen, I'm of the mind where no plug is shameless. You gotta do that hustle, right? So,
Andre, cut it.
Destroy it.
No, cut it. But yes, that sounds like you've sold me. That sounds like an interesting book, and I'd like to kind of like, even though if I know a lot of these kind of details, I think it'd be like there's a lot I don't know. I do not claim to know everything, so I that seems like one that I'll probably be adding to my Amazon wish list. So yeah, so good job to those who sent that to you. You've sold at least one book. Um, so my next title is a newer title, and this is from RLJ Entertainment, and it is The Apology
Mm.
with Anna Gunn from Breaking Bad fame or Infamy, depending on how you felt about her character. Um, which I liked her. I don't understand all the hate that she got. But yeah, this co-stars Linus Roach and Janine Garofalo.
Mm.
And I just want to say I don't want to get too deep into this because this is a movie that could probably be easily spoiled in some regards. So I'll kind of be very vague about what kind of the plot's about, but just very bare bones of this is a kind of a dark Christmas movie. I will say that this is set like right at Christmas. I believe it's Christmas Eve actually. And Anna Gunn plays a mom who her daughter went missing about 20 years prior, and ever since she's kind of just like she hasn't given up hope that she will one day figure out what happened to her daughter. There's even a little bit part of her that's like maybe she'll be found like living a life somewhere else. So she holds out like a little bit of hope until this one night on Christmas Eve, a person shows up who may have information about her daughter, and it just kind of like unfolds from there of just like what happens, and it's very intense, and it doesn't go like necessarily full-blown horror or anything, but it is very kind of like thrilling, intense, and kind of mysterious, and you kind of like wonder if you should trust this person, if what they're saying is true. So it's kind of like you're along for the ride. And like I said, I'm being very vague because I don't want to give away kind of the whole plot. But it is very well realized, and it's not a very long movie. It's 93 minutes, and it's a very talky movie. A lot of it is just like two people talking in different, sometimes in different tones. Sometimes it's like lighter. Sometimes it's like way more intense. There is a little bit of like kind of kinetic like action here and there. But it is just a lot of like intense conversations. But this is presented in a way that it doesn't really test your patience or interest or anything. It's very steadily paced, and it's just kind of like what is happening kind of keeps you engrossed, and you do want to know what happened to her daughter and like if she is still around and all that kind of stuff. So overall, this is a solid movie. As far as like the presentation, this includes a making of featurette. It's not nothing too substantial, but at least it's something. It could have been bare bones. The audio visual is solid. It's like it's as solid as a modern movie should be on video wise. It's a 5.1 soundtrack. So overall, this is a solid watch, and like it probably won't enhance your Christmas spirit or anything, but it's entertaining, and I'm glad I watched it, even if it was outside of the Christmas season. But it's a solid little thriller, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I was really curious when I saw this on the spreadsheet because I think I reviewed this, right?
No one ended up catching this one. Like it was
Oh,
like early December, and a lot was going on, and it just kind
yeah.
of got overlooked.
Okay. I guess I just watched it then. But I thought it was fine. I thought that it's a lot of show don't tell, and I think sometimes that can work, but I don't know. This felt a little underbaked. I thought there was some elements that were a little I don't know, like the tone was kind of weird. And the plot was just fine. But yeah. I'm
Yeah.
glad you dug it, and I'm glad it had a good release because I think it does have really great performances. I do like those actors, so that's a plus. My final film is one that I was really excited for, and that is 12 Angry Men on 4K. And here's the back. We got a nice amount of features. So I don't know if have you ever watched Strangers with Candy?
Oh yeah.
So this makes me think of one of my favorite jokes from that, which is Jerry Blank's mother was in a one-woman production of 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
And that joke has so many layers, and I love it. But anyways, yeah, this film is great. There's a kind of a reason why I try to save my favorite for last, and this is really it. This is a harrowing drama that was based on I believe, teleplay and then later a stage play. And of course, it's a single location. It's very much a stage-bound kind of production, but I think that, it's a credit to the filmmakers that, even though you're really just bound by a maybe, one or two sets, that it's so compelling. It's such a compelling character study. And, it does have a lot to say about the justice system, about, prejudice and judging people. And, it taps into some of these timely themes that are unfortunately still very relevant in our current climate. So if y'all are a fan of Sidney Lumet, we are also getting Serpico pretty soon with Al Pacino. I'm excited for that. Hopefully that'll be in the pipeline. And we also, well, I reviewed the remake that William Friedkin did, which not as good, but this movie's a classic, but it was still pretty entertaining. There is the Friedkin feature presented there as well. Excellent movie. The Friedkin version is fine. The scope certainly is a little bit better in the newer film, but I think what's so palpable about the original is just how they work with being so bound by the just limited settings. And this was something that Hitchcock was, this obviously wasn't directed by Hitchcock, but this was something that Hitchcock did really well. And to be able to kind of nail that is very difficult. So yeah, I mean, Henry Fonda, holy crap, this is maybe my favorite thing. And speaking of Hitchcock, my second favorite Fonda movie was the Wrong Man,
Oh yeah.
which was great. It's definitely one of Hitchcock's more serious films. So yeah, love it. I don't know how much I love this artwork, but it's a really great presentation. It looks great. Kino always takes a lot of special care with how their products look and sound. And just like the other 4Ks that I talked about, I sound like a broken record, but really like this batch was so damn good. I mean, it looked fantastic. And this is a film that I've seen like a dozen times. It's one of those, like you were talking about comfort watches. Like, even though this isn't like a cuddly feel-good movie, it is kind of a comfort watch for me, just because it's so well done and so well acted. So yeah, it's amazing. And for classic film buffs, I mean, this is also a must-have.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the original Criterion release, but I am glad that this got a 4K. I am excited to upgrade it and just see how this looks in 4K. I'm sure it'll look great because the Blu-ray already looks really good, but I do see where there's room for improvement, which I'm sure this will help.
Yeah. Now, just because we might have fans that are curious about this, I think I'm correct in saying that the Criterion extras were not able to be ported over to this. Like they're pretty notorious about only their stuff getting, like, they don't ever license out, I think, their special features. But that's fine. I mean, I know a lot of people that will have probably opt for both if you're a really hardcore fan. But honestly, like, I don't have the Criterion collection of this. Otherwise I would have referred to that. But like, I think that this is, this is the one edition that I want. So, Kino, as always, did an amazing job, and keep these great 4Ks coming,
Absolutely. I'm very excited to check that one out. I'm glad that you were able to get it, and I look forward to adding it to my collection very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Kino, you were killing it with your 4Ks, and I need a pile more, so.
Absolutely. My final title is one, it is very intriguing, especially the title alone got me. And this is from Circle Collective and Vinegar Syndrome. This is How to Build a Time Machine. So this is one of the partner labels from Vinegar Syndrome. And so this has some cool artwork here. So you got disc art, and it comes with a booklet and some interior art, which I'll kind of show off as well. So here's kind of the interior artwork. Nice. So not reversible, but just nice interior. And then you got the booklet, which looks pretty cool as well. So it's a little manual, and it has like a essay, and some images and all that good stuff. So a few words on the film as well. So yeah, this it's a documentary, and this actually comes from Jay Cheel, who did the recent Shudder series Cursed Films, which you reviewed the second season on the site. And that's a pretty solid series as well, which especially got like even better in the second season that you reviewed. But so this is an older release. This is from 2015 that he directed, and this kind of centers on the old, I believe it's the 1960s, 50s film, The Time Machine, and two people's kind of different approaches to how like it impacted their lives. On one end, like you're following this guy who watched it as a kid, like he had like a really great effect, like really great memories of it, and like watching it, and he's always just had a very special place in his heart. And as he's grown older, he decided he wanted to make a replica of that time machine that's in the movie. So he is like going to like great lengths. This isn't just like a like thrown together thing. He is like crafting things out of like mahogany and like like forging steel and all. He's like putting like so many, like he's been working on this for years and years of just like like intense work. And through this process, like you get to understand a little bit of his thought process of like why he's doing this, what the movie means to him, and like how it impacts him and all that stuff. So like it is kind of like a love letter to the movie, and like just like kind of like his own imagination, and just like how it connects like memories of his like his father and his family and his childhood, and just like kind of all that. So it's kind of that emotional core, but it's more so focused on the act of trying to create this time machine. This other gentleman that we are following, it's also very personal to him, but in a very different way. He actually wants to build a legit time machine. But he was inspired by the movie, but he wants to do it for very sentimental, understandable reasons, which will really tug at your heartstrings. Which is, his father died when he was very young, and he saw this movie, and he's just kind of like he wants to like have like another chance to like spend time with his dad. So he's like we're actually gone into like the field of physics and like studying like black holes and everything. And like while of course you would probably know if he like learned how to time travel, like it maybe would have shown up. But like it is just kind of like this very emotional pursuit of like one guy's like understandable emotional journey to like want to reconnect to his father, and like how that kind of like drives like a different kind of obsession from this other gentleman who just like is trying to obsess about like meticulously building this time machine. This guy, he's obsessing on how do I realistically achieve time travel. And of course you're not going to like solve that within this movie, but it is an interesting dynamic between following these two individuals and how they kind of like intersect, and like what kind of this one like idea, movie, everything, how it's like kind of impacted these two individuals and kind of just like radiates outward. Um, I would say that the log line is probably a little stronger than the actual execution. It is a very like good documentary. There were elements that I wish could have been expanded upon a little bit more, or I wish like maybe certain things had hit me just a little bit harder. But overall, it is a very solid documentary, and I think like if the premise intrigues you, it's well worth a watch. I think um, I wanted a little bit more personality from both of the men, but that's just kind of like I don't want to criticize their personality. It's just like they are who they are, and they are engaging. It's just like a lot of the documentaries I watch, you get some really, really, truly colorful personalities that can be a lot of fun, but it's more so about their emotional connections and stuff. And it's not so much like a look at these like crazy people. It's more like grounded and understand, which that like I think that's a perfectly like that's what it is. It's like you shouldn't be trying to shape this to be something that it's not. And overall, it still makes for a very good documentary. So I'm glad I got to see this. This is a really solid release. It's a really good high definition transfer. This is a recent documentary, like I said, from like 8 years ago. So it's a high definition cameras, looks good. There's no artifacts or digital anomalies or anything. It's a really solid release. Sounds good. Lossless audio, and there's a pretty good number of special features. There is a commentary track from the director. There's some deleted scenes that didn't make it into the movie. There are one of the gentlemen, they like whenever they were younger, they filmed kind of like their own version like of a Superman film, which that does like his story about that does reveals additional layers like that are kind of adds more emotional poignancy to his side of the equation as well. So both end up being poignant stories, but there are some outtakes from that on this disc, like his student film and various other kind of like short featurettes as well. So overall, it's a pretty well-rounded package. As I say with these Vinegar Syndrome partner releases, if you're interested, I haven't checked, but they usually sell limited edition slipcovers on the Vinegar Syndrome website. So if you are a big slipcover fanatic, and theirs are top notch over Vinegar Syndrome, check out the site. This might not be sold out yet. They do tend to go pretty fast, especially for like bigger title releases. I know Something in the Dirt just released or announced this past Sunday, and it sold out within like 8 hours. So you got to be on top of Vinegar Syndrome releases. But I think there's probably still some left for this one. But overall, I recommend it. It's a pretty solid documentary, and yeah, it's a good release.
Nice. I know I am very soon, if it's not already sold out, going to get the slip-covered edition of Showgirls, because that's a pretty great movie. That's not up for debate.
Absolutely.
But no, that sounds really interesting. I think it's interesting that they have two very different but very interesting kind of perspectives on the subject matter. Yeah, that's sounds pretty good. I'm always down for good documentaries. So I know last week you covered the Volkswagen one, so that's another one that's pretty interesting. So yeah, I guess that is our show. And as always, it's nice to have a very wide variety of stuff that we can cover and talk about. And as always, I'll do the obligatory. Please give us a like, comment, share. All that stuff helps out a lot. And as always, thank you for hanging out with us.